Okay, here we go. This week 4, right? I want to go over homework a
Yeah.
little bit real quick. Um, Last week I shared with you some approaches um, to better isolating a particular technique to your subject matter. Um, and I think we went into channels, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that may be a faux pas on me because that was really a little bit more of an advanced technique, but I figured you guys can handle it. And chances are I probably shouldn't have done it. I probably should have simplified it, which I'm going to do today. I'm gonna look at we're gonna look at Don's homework here, and in the future, if you guys would really, if you can't, if there's something you're struggling with, even though you can't finish it, even though you're frustrated, submit the unfinished piece anyway, and then that way I can walk you through what you kind of should have been doing, and then that usually tremendously helps everybody out. All right, so I want to take a look at the original here. Does everybody remember the shortcut for isolating a channel view wise?
Yeah. Command. Click on the icon or the thumbnail, and I think
Eyeball.
And it and
no,
but
no, no. It was clicking on the actual thumbnail and command. I thought.
it's Option or Alt. While holding down Option or Alt, you click on the eyeball of the thumbnail.
Oh.
Just the eyeball, not on the image, not on the layer, but just on the eyeball. So this is what Don has, and this is a great example. This is a fantastic example of what I was trying to share with you guys last week. Now I noticed, and I'm seeing some mistakes. I'm looking at his layers also, because your layers is like a sheet of music. It's telling me what you guys were thinking when you were doing this process. And what by looking at Don's layers, I'm seeing that even though he achieved the goal, he didn't quite understand what he should have been doing. And
That's
let
surprising.
okay, now let me explain it this way. If I turn off all the layers except for layer one, you can see what he's been doing. He cut into the image. In other words, he painted with white in the image. What he meant to do was to paint with white into his channel, into his adjustment layer, which is right up here, which is your levels. But he ended up painting into this one instead. So I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to duplicate the original again. So this is what he should have had, so that when we turn this one on, that's the effect he was going to get. So what he did was he painted with white in the other layer, the one that I just deleted. In fact, here I'll undo it real quick so that we can. There we go. And he changed it to soft light so that he could brighten up certain areas. All right. Now I'm going to recreate. What was that?
No, I'm amazed, because I didn't think I was painting on that layer. I thought I was painting in what do you call it? Not the just
Yeah.
the layer mask. I
Yeah.
thought
But
that's where I was painting.
but you were not. Everybody sees the layer right there. It's right in front
Yeah,
of you.
no, yeah.
Yeah. You
I
paint it
used on that layer. What I tried to do was just to lighten it up with the blend mode,
right.
and then I tried to lighten it more with the
That's
using the curves from
that's right. That's
yeah,
what you should have been doing. I'm gonna
okay,
pull this underneath, and I'll duplicate this one. And what you did was you did correctly, by the way, Don.
yeah,
But what was going on was when you painted with white and additional in that layer, it will
yeah,
continue to further lighten the boats. And that's what you were doing. You saw that, oh, it's lightening it even more, which is what I
right,
want to do. So you continue to paint in that layer.
yeah,
So if you take this one and you simply give it, you got your, let's see, what did you do? You had the soft light mode. You had this light mode, which was kind of intensifying your highlights a little bit. This section here is actually increasing your contrast. Remember, Darken maintains your brightness, maintains your shadows, so it's going to darken everything. Lighten brightens everything, right?
Yeah.
This section's increasing contrast. So I'm assuming that what you intended to do was to increase contrast in some of the background areas a little bit, because soft light is what you had. And if you continue to paint with white in this layer, these areas will brighten up.
Yeah.
If that is your goal, now remember, I think this is one of the first things I showed everybody. The burning and dodging technique. You can make a blank layer. You can change its blend mode to overlay, right? And then you paint with white or black. So if I hit the B key to go to my brush, right? I'm gonna go to my, that's a pencil. I didn't mean to do that. I want to go here, go to my brush here, right? I want to make it a little bigger. And if I paint with white, hit the X key to make sure my foreground color is white. All right, make sure I'm in the right layer there. Turn off my caps lock. See that little plus sign there? Notice that when I have my brush, the sizing, the circumference is no longer there when I release it. It's because my caps lock is on. And if I turn off the caps lock, it comes back. So if you guys are trying to resize your brush, but you keep getting this plus symbol, this is basically your fine tuning cursor. A fine cursor, I think it's called. I forget what it's called exactly. But hit the caps lock, turn it off, and then your actual brush, your tool will come back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm hovering above the pad to resize my brush, and if I paint with white, all right, I'm going to make sure that's an overlay. Oh, actually, I'm not. That's not what I wanted. Yeah, that is what I want. Overlay, what's going on here? I'm in overlay, and opacity is 100%. Is that working? Yeah, it is. There it is. Yeah. Yeah, it's working. We're getting close. All right, it starts to brighten up those highlights a little bit. All right. But okay, let's and if I want to paint with black again, it's gonna darken things down, as you can see. So I have that option as well. There are a little better ways that I like to work, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of share that with everybody, especially when we're dealing with some image editing with photographic images. So okay, we duplicated our layer. I'm going to change that back to normal blend mode. Oh, actually, this is soft light. It's what you wanted. I'm gonna do what I think you wanted to do. So there you go. So you got the nicer looking background. Now we need to brighten up this foreground here. So that's where you come over here to. Now noticing here you've got linear dodge technique selected. Let me get rid of this. This was an accident. That should not be there, by the way. That's called a vector mask, and we kind of don't touch that until the advanced class. All right, so I'm going to turn this off and on, right? Off and on. All right, so you got linear dodge here. And you also have a curve. Yeah, see, there's very little effects happening here. Very interesting.
I painted on the wrong layer. I can't believe I did that.
Yes.
I was doing.
Let me go to screen. See, screen's brightening it up a lot more. All right. And if I pull this up higher, you can see. Well, I really have to pull that up, that curve up to get this to brighten, because that's pretty dark in there. Let me see. Let's pull this up a little bit. Now, let's see, bring that up to there. All right, there we go. I'm bringing up the shadow detail. So, just to give you a nice little understanding of curves, right down here represents the 256 shades of gray that we have in Photoshop. Absolute black, 256 shades of gray until it becomes absolute white, right? So let me turn this. Let me just turn this mask off so we can see everything. Shift click on the mask, and that gets rid of it, so that what we're seeing is the effects only of the curves. I'm going to make that normal for now. So shadows, all your different midtones. So basically, if I want the shadows, which is this very small, which is this bottom left-hand corners, to become this shade of gray right here on this linear graph, on this vertical graph here. So these down here represent the tones that exist in your image. This vertical line are the tones that you're turning them into. So if I go to the shadows, I want the shadows not to be absolute black, which is way down here, but instead to be kind of like a medium gray. I take that point and place it on the gray I want it to be, and the blacks become that gray. And the same thing for the highlights. If I want the highlights in this image to come down to a lower tonality, here are my highlights right up here. So I click and release on that one button. Now take a look. I get a little linear line that's going horizontal. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Right? It's showing you, it's pointing you to the tone that is turning all of your whites into. Right? So now the whites start to take on a lower tonality. But it's also shifting your other midtones in combination. So if I want the darks, the blacks to be blacker, the darker, then I'm going to clip into the histogram. So here's your histogram. It's saying that everything is really, really dark black. Most of your tones are in the black area, very little in the mid-tone, and hardly any highlights at all, right? So I can shift all of these tones upwards by putting a dot in the middle and just bringing it straight upward, and everything starts to get a little brighter, right? So obviously it's affecting your highlights quicker, all right? Because if you look at the curve, all the highlights here, you see those are shifting up faster. So they're starting to clip. I'm clipping the highlights, right? So it was that clipping is what I wanted you to get. Once you had this clipping, that means the shadow areas right in here is the areas that you wanted to target. And personally, I should have not showed you this way, because what I asked you guys to do is once you had all this area targeted, then you can go over to channels and you can make a mask out of it, right? That's what I showed you last week.
Right.
All right. What I should have shown you instead was just to do this. Was just brighten it up, make it brighter. Let's see. What would be the quick way of handling this? And if curves intimidate you guys, you're welcome to use levels. So what I'll do is I'll delete this and I'll do levels. I'll come up here because levels is usually less intimidating. And you have your shadows, your midtones, your highlights. Here's your gradient down here in the bottom that's representing your 256 shades of gray that exists in your image. Right? Your shadows, if you want them darker, what's happening is that this shadow slider is clipping all this information to the right off, altering all of it to 0 black. Right? Or the same thing for white. Bring the whites over and it clips out all this information, altering all this information back here to 255 white. And that's what's happening up here. Is that making sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So now my midtone slider, say I can, there we go. I can push that up like so. There we go. Now we're bringing back the color and the detail in this area. Now what I should have shown you last week is, okay, now that you know you can achieve the brightness and the color for these areas, then all you're going to do is this, Command I, and then paint it in. Right? So go to your brush, and let's see, what did I do? Let me get out of this mode. There we go. All right. So I'm going to hit the F key once so I can go to full screen mode. And I'm going to go to my brush. I'm going to go right up here to the fourth tool on the right hand side. Well, I'm going to select the brush first. And I want that soft edge brush. When you press light with the walking pen, it becomes a light effect, harder, stronger opacity, and light again, lesser opacity. That's what these visual thumbnails are showing you. If these thumbnails are not there, guys, right up here, once you're inside here, right up here in the top corner is that little gear symbol. if you click it down, what you can do is come right over here and you can select these options. Show the brush name, show the brush stroke, and show the brush tip. We're going to do that together in just a little bit, but I just want to go over this homework assignment real fast. So once that's done, I'm going to go to the fourth icon to get the brush panel, and I'm going to ensure that transfer is turned on and pen pressure is set. As you can see here, it's showing you here visually. Press light, you get this effect, harder, and then light again. That's all that's showing you. So now I got the capability of my Wacom stylus, or it doesn't have to be Wacom. It could be another brand name. It'll work the same way. I've got the ability of my stylus to resize. I got the top button on my stylus to resize my brush, or to go to hard, or to go to soft. And my other hand is right here in front of me while I'm doing this. Right, other hand's not touching the tablet. Just one hand connected to my top button. Now I'm gonna get rid of this brush settings. I don't need it anymore. Once it's set, I'm done. Also, if you make any adjustments to your brush, just keep this in mind. You have to save that brush or else you're gonna lose it. So hit the hamburger menu, new brush preset, call it whatever you want. I'll call this one basic soft brush. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that the include tool settings is off, because I want this brush that I'm creating to be available for all the brushes in my palette. So if I click OK, all right, there's my brush. I don't need the brush settings anymore. I already know that the top button on my Wacom pen is set for resizing and soft hard. So I don't need that brush setting to be there for me at this point. So at this point, I'm going to get in close. And you have to think logically here, in that you don't want this to look like a painting. You want this to look as if it's a soft on the application of new lighting that we're applying. And we're altering the mask. So if I take the mask and go to Command I to go to white, this is what I'm going to get. If I go to black, this is what I'm going to get. So what I want to do is bring in a little bit of that wherever I want, right? So we'll just use our brush. Just take my little Wacom pen here, right? And I'm going to gently just touch down, right? Just gently touch down. And notice I'm using what's called a big ass brush. And I'm slow.
What blend mode are you in for this?
All right. So question is, what blend mode am I working in here? It's normal.
Normal. Okay. Okay.
It's normal in this one.
Okay.
Right. So, oops, sorry. Bloop. All right. I'm going to go back here. Go back. Click on the mask. All right. And start to gently. See, it's a big ass brush. And I'm being patient. And I'm taking my time because I want it to look like the lighting is going to be naturally flowing over this piece. I don't want to look like a paintbrush. I'm not so worried about the detail in the background, because that darker detail helps to produce depth in my image, right? So as things get further back, they'll get a little darker, but we'll get more into that later too. So I'm going to just, as I get to the edge of my boat, my brush gets smaller, right? And I'm still touching very lightly, very gently, very lightly, taking my time, not rushing it. All right. Even today, when I create some of my best work, I do not rush. It's a slow, patient process. And I'm slowly going to bring it out because I don't want these hard strokes to show. I don't want to look like a hand stroke tried to paint in the lighting. I want this to look like it's a gentle, soft lighting coming across. And lighting is broad and transitions slowly at night. Very slowly at night. So I'm going to get down here in the dots. And I'm saying I want to bring up these dots just a little bit more. And as you can see, I'm starting to give some attention right over here to the sides. All right, just gently and very soft. So I'm pressing very lightly with my Wacom pen on my pad. Just very lightly. All right, very lightly, very gentle, very soft, bringing it across. You can see it's happening here. Now, just in case you forget, because your brain is a magnificent tool, it's forgetting what I'm doing. So what you do, or it's going to forget what you're doing. So you're going to keep looking at it, and go, okay, am I really making progress? Well, you come over here to the eyeball in that layer and go before, after, before, after. Oh, yeah, I am making progress. Okay, this is working. All right, so then I get in close, spacebar first, command or control, tap down and hold with your walking pin. Wherever I tap down and hold and drag, I go to that area there. I want to bring it down. I zoomed in too much. And I'm going to continue the work. Bring the brush down and just gently bring out these areas. If I'm getting too close to the edge on some of these, so bring the brush smaller just for the edge, and I'm starting to bring out the detail just for the edges of the ship to blend in with everywhere else that I've painted in. So hold the space bar down, go to the edges. All right. So now that you've done the broader area, now it's just bring that brush down, and what's going to happen is you're going to learn that you're not trying to be detailed oriented. You're just trying to get the feeling and the mood of the piece by changing the lighting. And now notice I'm working fast now. It's just like, okay, this area is a bigger area for this little darker portion back here. So make the brush bigger, big ass brush, gentle, 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 very gentle. Take your time, bring it down. And what you're going to start to find happening is the more you practice exactly like this, the faster you're going to get. And then you're going to get faster, and then you're going to get faster. It comes in time. All right. So there we go. I'm looking at the front of the boat, the Lady Pauline, and the Lucky J, and I'm thinking it needs more intensity. If I forget how much intensity I have left, hold the Shift key down and click on the mask. That'll get rid of the mask. And it shows you, okay, I've got more brightness I can put in there, right? And click that there. I notice Rufus has his camera and microphone turned off, so hopefully you're okay. Now I'm going to start to slowly bring this in and slowly bring this in, okay? So, see how I'm bringing it up more? So I'm just being patient, that's all. Slowly bringing it in. And because I'm used to working with the Wacom tablet, so I can do this very quickly if I want to. Just I'm moving my shoulder, my whole arm around the piece. There's Rufus. He's back. There he goes. Is that making sense, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
It certainly is.
Oh,
Another question. In this case,
yeah.
you have a reflection. Would you do about the same amount of lighting on the reflection as the ship itself?
Okay, very good. All right, now, as you start to learning how to improve your image, you're gonna learn better as to how your image should look, and also, what should be manipulated and what should not be manipulated. Sorry about that. Let me turn off this phone. It's annoying. There we go. Okay. What is that noise back there? Like somebody's sucking. So right over here, Don, you have this area that has detail and reflection, which you really would like to bring out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So big ass brush, just like this. Gently, 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 gently bring it out. See that? It's a very fast and gentle process. You got to have a big brush because your lighting here is subtle and broad. Gently, gently, gently bring it out. Yeah. You got a little bit in the foreground. Look at the tree is coming out finally, right? So bringing this on down, bring it on out. Okay, so you're working on what I'm going to try to ingratiate upon all of you is you need to start thinking more like a painter, right? And less of a photographer. And if you're stubborn about that concept, you're not going to grow, right? Start making a habit of looking at paintings and not just photography, and it's going to improve your photography tremendously. So now look, this is all we done. Let's take a look at the mask alone. Option or Alt key and click on the mask. That's what I've been doing. Just editing the mask with the brush. And I'm going to Option or Alt and click it again. Now before and after. Before and after. Okay. Now this is the part where I tell you guys don't get greedy, right? I want to edit this tree down here. To bring out a little more detail down in there. Those shadows. And I'm going to bring out a little more detail right over in here. There we go. Being gentle, taking my time. All right, so it doesn't look like it's being brushed. Now, here, Don is probably thinking, that's much better. I can actually see reflections in there, right? But what if we wanted to snap a little more pop, a little more snap? Okay, well, we can go, and if you like, you can grab another levels if you like. You can try the blend mode on that before you do anything to see what you're getting. And maybe I'm going to go over to screen blend mode because this area is going to brighten my image. Go to screen and oh, there we go. That's nice. Color dodge. Wow, that's adding too much contrast and brighten up the brights. Linear dodge. That's not bad. Maybe we'll do that. All right, we'll try this, or we'll go to just screen. How about if we go to screen first and linear dodge afterwards? How does that sound? Okay. So screen. Now the goal here is to make the boats jump out forward, right? So I don't want to apply the screen technique anywhere but on the boats. So Command.
I'm sorry. Is this a whole new layer that you just added?
Take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, okay, so it's a new layer. Okay, got it.
Right? All right. Okay. So your question is also telling me, Don, that you're not paying attention to your layer positionings.
All right? I see.
All right? Yeah. You got the Photoshop is all about layers.
Yeah.
All right?
Okay.
So there's my new one. And what blend mode did we give this layer? Screen, right? So now, edit the mask. Click on the mask. Here's my brush. I'm going to make my brush bigger. And again, a gentle stroke. And start to bring out these areas only. All right? Just gentle. Bring them out. All right? So before, after. Now, I'm being a little sloppy because I'm trying to do this quickly and fast. But as you get to the edges of the boat, your brush gets smaller. Or you can also bring it down there in the reflections. So maybe we want those reflections to come out a little bit more. See, very broad. And they are. Those reflections are coming out a little better. Right? But again, I want the viewer's eye to focus on these boats. Now, once I have that screen blend mode on here, as I just done, right? You still have the ability to go back into the curves and brighten that area up brighter. Just using the curves. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
So all I was trying to share with you guys is using a combination of your adjustments and your blend modes. That maybe try your blend mode first with your adjustment before you do anything and see how well it does. And then if you need a little more pop afterwards, you can always pop it out. For example, if I want more contrast, more highlights, I can go to the whites and pull that on over, right? And the whites will really pop out.
Steve, if you wanted to add color to the water, would you add another layer and add that by putting another layer?
Yeah, I would use another layer. So the question is how do I colorize the water? There's a variety of ways of doing it. If you come right down here in your adjustments, you have photo filters. I think that's down at the, I thought it was at the bottom. Maybe it's at the top. Gradient pattern, solid color. Where's photo filters? Photo filter right there. All right. If we click it, we're adding some color in here. And in this example, it has the naming of all the filters that you would buy for your camera when you screw your filter over your lens. In this case, it's my warming filter number 85, warming filter LBA 81, and I can click any of these and it changes. It starts to add a little bit of a color tinge. Now, what's nice about this is it adds a nice little color range, and my properties. Whenever I have an adjustment layer, to make the adjustment, I have to go into the properties panel. So you have to make sure your properties, within your Windows menu, properties is open. You want to make sure that's open with your adjustment layers, all your adjustment layers. All right, so if I come over to the levels, immediately properties change to the levels. If I go back to photo filters and click on photo filters, immediately the photo filters adjustments come up. That making sense?
One more time. If you click on, just go back to those two.
Yeah. So you see this is my photo filter here, right?
Right.
So if I want the properties for the levels to go back to adjust levels again, I'm going to click on this right there, right on the levels, and then the levels come up. So it's your preferences panels for all of your adjustments. That's all. Is that making sense? That's all it is. That's all it is. Don't complicate it. It's nothing more than that. So if I say I want a curves adjustment, all of a sudden it turns to curves. Right? If I click on photo filters, it turns to photo filters. If I click on levels, it turns to levels. Okay? It's as simple as that. It's not complicated. So, but we want to go to photo filters because your question was on adding color. And there's a variety of different ways. So let's say, for example, you wanted blue for the bottom, but you want more of a reddish yellowish for the top. Let's see if I have any graduation filters in here. Let's drop this down on the filters, and I've got sepia, deep red, deep blue, deep emerald. See what that looks like. All right. Oh, and take a look at this. In this properties for those filters, I've got the intensity of the color. So I want little color, I take it out to nothing. If I want more color, I pull it in until I really pop it in there. Okay, so I'm only showing you this because I think it's going to work well for this scene. I'm going to go grab. I'm going to go grab the photo filter like a cooling blue, like this for the water, right? And if you take a look at your adjustment on your mask for your adjustment, because all adjustment layers have a mask, everything that's white, it reveals the technique. If it's black, it takes away the technique, right? So what you want to do is you want the technique in the bottom, but you don't want the technique in the top. I want to put something else in the top. So I'm going to go over here to the gradient option, or G for gradient. And that's going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th tool down. I'm going to click it. There's the gradient tool. And the way the gradient tool works is it makes a transition from foreground to background color. Right? So if I make a brand new layer, just for educational purposes, if I drag from left to right, it goes from foreground to background. It gets that line there. The line's telling you the direction you're going. It's going to gradiate to, and it goes from foreground to background, black to white, because foreground to background. Foreground is black and white. If I want to say black from the bottom and white to the top, there's my black. Foreground to background. Foreground to background. That's all it is. Now, if that's the case, I'm going to delete this layer now. If that's the case, well, couldn't we do that same application for this, for the mask? I want white in the bottom, and I want black at the top. Because I don't want the blue at the top, I want the blue at the bottom. So, I'm going to restrict the technique to a vertical line by holding the Shift key, which means it's only going to stay completely vertical. Holding the Shift key, it constrains it. Now release the stylus or the mouse first. Now, I'm going to intensify this color. I'm going to click on the... I'm on the curve. Oops, sorry. I did the wrong one. Sorry about that. Get rid of that. Okay. Now, we're in this one here. So now, white to black, foreground to background. I'm in the photo filters now. And there. Okay. If I click on the photo filter and say, let's intensify that blue. See? And if you take before and after, you see only the bottom is being affected. Now I want the top one to have more of that yellowish orange. So I'm going to add another adjustment on top of that. Photo filter. And let's see, warming is the default. I can intensify the warming, something like this, right? I like that sunset looking sky, but now I only want to be restricted to the top. So I want the top to be white and the bottom to be black, right? So making sure the mask is selected, holding the shift key with the gradient, white to black. Boom. So now I've got one color up there, another color down here. All right, now with all...
I'm sorry. Photographically, is that something you'd want to do? Shouldn't the water reflect the same color as the sky?
Oh yeah. But you can,
Okay.
but you all got you've got all types of controls, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. We've got one. Let's go to the water here. So maybe you want maybe with the water you don't want so much intensity, so bring it down a little bit so you get a little bit of that color coming through. Is that making sense?
Okay.
Or you can bring down layer opacity.
Right.
It's a couple of different ways to do it. But in this example, probably applying the, toning down the intensity of this particular filter. And then maybe you don't want either of these filters to be on the boats. Maybe you want the boats to be more neutral. So that's where you hit your B key for your brush. And you want to take away the effect, which means you're painting with what color?
Black.
That's right.
Black, yeah.
So hit the X key so that I'm painting with black. And I'm going to go to this photo filter and say take that effect away completely, which is, you can hardly see the effect because we subtly applied it anyway. So that was the bottom one, right? So I'm taking all that effect away completely. And then we go over to the top one and do the same thing and say take that effect away from the top. So we maintain the natural colors up here. Now, if I want an overall intensity of the color, right, we have another adjustment layer called hue and saturation. I recommend you go to vibrance. Hue and saturation is taking your color, and we've covered this in the beginning class. Your hue and saturation is going to intensify your colors. And again, addressing Don's question about how to put color, bring color back into here, right? You can target the color that you want. For example, let's see. If I want to, I suppose we can target the green, which means you will come right over here where it says master, target the greens only, right? And right down here in the bottom, it gives you the targeting range for the color that you want to target. So it's right now, you have the interior modes, which is targeting the absolute color, and then the range of that greens that you're targeting. And I'm going to pull this off so you can see this next to it. The range of the greens that you're targeting with the outer tool, the outer arrows. Because I want this range from yellow to green and this range from blue to green to also be targeted. And now, what do we want to do with that green? With the greens only? Well, I want to take it and change only those colors. You see that changing a little bit in the photograph? Right over here, we kind of get a little closer. And greens is not a good example. See, it's only targeting those areas. Now, green is not a good example in this case because green, there's no such thing as green in nature. Green is always a combination of two colors, a combination of blue and yellows. So you're going to also need to target the yellows and target the blues, but that's for a whole nother gig. I just wanted to kind of like just throw that out there. So you've got all types of controls for intensifying your color. When we get into the advanced class, we start getting into the LAB mode. There's some fabulous ways of controlling your color. Pull this up more, and pull that down. Okay, so I think we spent enough time on this, but think it was worth spending. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So let's go have some fun. And what I'd like to do is address brushes. So they're going to be really handy. I think that's going to be really handy. So I'm just making do me a favor and make a new palette of 5" by 5" on your desktop. Make it a 5" by 5" palette at 200 pixels per inch. I'm going to just pause the recording until you guys get done. Let me know when you're done. Okay, resume. All right, I'm in Bridge, and I'm noticing that my photos are not in alphabetical order. When you're working in Bridge, and if they're not in alphabetical order, just right-click inside this content area, go to Sort, and resort by file name. You can sort by type or create date you created and all that. So go by file name, and it'll reorganize everything. Now I can come down here and find my people where I expect them to be. Go to people here. Cool. All right. Let's see. I think I'm gonna use her. On your Google Drive, if you haven't already downloaded the images, and I did ask everybody to download them if you wanted to. Download this one. I think this is called. Oh, what is this called? This is called
Cover 2J.
Yeah, Cover 2, Optimal or something. It's inside the people folder. It's this woman here. So open her up as well. Okay, and I will pause the recording and let everybody get that image opened up as well. All right, we're gonna make some hair brushes, guys, and we're gonna modify her hair a little bit. We're also going to learn how to. And I think I did this in the beginning class, but I tell you what, we'll play with the hairbrush first, and then we'll talk about extracting her out a little bit later. I'm going to duplicate the layer. I'm going to hit Command J on her. Okay, I'm going to hit Command J so that I have that second layer, and then what I'd like you to do also is make a brand new layer on top of that new layer one that we just created. So just hit the new layer icon to the left of the garbage can, so you have exactly what I have. Alright, so all you need is a brand new layer up here. Alright, you okay, Don?
Yeah, all of a sudden she disappeared.
Oh, you're not.
I don't know where it went to, but
Are you using Are you using one monitor or two monitors?
no, I've got. I'm sorry. I'll get it. Don't worry. I had it, but
Okay. I thought you had multiple monitors at your house.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, you
I
can.
just realized what I did. I forgot. I just realized how I screwed up.
All right, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Just put StreamYard on one and work on Photoshop on the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
I screwed up. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, very good. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to access the other folder. Now, if you hit the F key in the keyboard, it'll take me to the full screen mode. And then what you're going to do is go to your window menu, arrange, and tile vertically, like this. I'm going to take the layers and put it kind of in the center, so it's not covering up stuff. I'm going to make it a little thinner so I can resize the layers by just tapping outside the double arrow and then resize it down a little bit, just so we can see both of them side by side. Okay, what I'd like you also to do next is to target the tab for your brand new file here. And then make sure you add a new layer above that background for the new file. And we're going to work in this file here. Okay, we're going to work on the blank canvas first, the white canvas first. And keep in mind, once again, if you haven't also done this already, is make sure you not duplicate the layer, but make a brand new layer above your white background. All right, we're gonna make straight hair. Right, people with straight hair. And we're going to create a brush that's going to create straight hair. And we're going to utilize that brush to improve upon her hairdo. And then maybe we'll make a brush that will also give her some freckles. All right. So what we'll do is, what I would like you to have is, with your brush targeted, I want you to come over and make sure you have this soft feathered edge brush similar to what I've got here. So you click on the third icon from the left once your brush is activated, and this brush panel is going to come up. And yours may be listed right under the general brushes right up here, right there. So you should have it under general brushes by default. And what I like you to do now, here's something that's kind of critical here. I just told you to get the softer edge brush. Don't do that. I've changed my mind. I want you to have the hard edge brush, the solid hard edge brush right there. It's called hard round brush.
Hi, honey.
Okay, so we got the hard round brush. Once you've targeted, just click anywhere in Photoshop and that panel will go away. All right, here we go. Now, next thing we're going to have you do, in fact, let's just focus on the brush for now. So what I'm personally going to do is I'm going to maximize this, hit the F key and maximize it so we're only seeing this one document. You can keep yours double screen, but I'm going to just make it for your ease of following along with me. I'm just going to work on one document for now. So we're going to create a new brush. So we're gonna think about, how would I create hairbrush? How would I create a straight hairbrush? So I'm going to kind of use my imagination here, and I'm going to think, okay, if I take hair, that lady's hair, and clump it in between my fingers, and take scissors and cut off the ends of the hair and look straight down at it, what types of shapes do I expect to see?
Straight dot, little dots.
That's exactly correct. So the idea here is to start simplifying your shapes. That's the key to creating brushes. So, all right, let's actually do that. Let's make some dots. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to, there we go. What does it do? I see what it's doing. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to make it very small, because hair is very, very fine, right? So I'm going to make a small little brush, say about like this. And the key is I have to be working with black. All right? I've got to be working with black, because black is the only color that Photoshop recognizes for creating brushes. So right now, if I draw, this is the brush I've got. I know that because if I go to the brush panel, the fourth icon on the left-hand side, I'm going to have this brush panel up right next to my document. And this preview is telling me what I'm going to get. So when I draw, it matches my preview. I don't have transfer on. All the boxes are unchecked. Right? When you selected that brush, that hard edge brush, it means no special effects, no effects are being applied. Just do a nice straight black line. Now also take note that I have my entire document selected with Command or Control A for select all. The reason I did that is if I hit delete key, it'll delete the contents within the layer and not the whole layer. You guys try it now. Just take your brush and draw like this, just anywhere. Just kind of get used to drawing around. I'm looking for art. I'm just looking for you guys to get used to your pen. Now keep in mind that once again, your palm of your hand, the blade of your hand is resting on your tablet, and you're touching it. And it doesn't matter what pressure you put to this particular pen stroke, because Photoshop is saying just give you black. And then hit delete. Now, Don, I think you're writing. This is being recorded. Stop writing. I want you working with the tablet.
Okay. Okay.
This is the only pen you need right now.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So just draw, play, play. I just want you to get used to playing. Get used to the pen. Rick is saying he's having a tough time with the pen. This is your opportunity to become friends with your stylist. Your stylist loves
Can't hear
you.
you, Steve.
What?
Steve, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Why can't you hear me?
We can't hear you.
Hold on a minute.
I hear.
You
I
hear?
hear you.
So that's a
Yep.
Don problem. That's a Don problem. Don can Don hear anybody else? If somebody else talks?
Don, can you talk?
Oh, now okay. Now, yeah. Oh, it's just, all of a sudden you went blank. But okay, I hear it now.
Okay, so Don, it's just your bandwidth, I think.
Oh,
Okay. All right, it's just your bandwidth.
okay.
All right. So once I'm done, let's see, what am I doing here? Now I'm all messed up. So once I'm done practicing with my pen, hit delete on your keyboard and it'll delete the contents, just like Etch-a-Sketch. This is how you test your new brush. Any new brush you create, you're going to test it out just like this. Make a new document, put a new layer, Command A, so that you can come here, okay, I want to try this little brush here, I want to try this brush here, I want to try this brush here, then hit delete and it deletes it in there, but your layer is still there. So that's the way you test your brushes. Now, I want to create a hairbrush, right? So let's go do that. I'm going to take these dots here, make it about that small, and I'm going to put a dot here, a dot there, a dot there. I'm going to make a smaller dot and alter the size of the dots because each hair is not going to all have the same thickness. And that's about all I'm going to do. Now you guys do that next. All right, now, once you have your dots, we need to do something with them. I need to tell Photoshop to select that shape. So I've got select all turned on now. What I'm going to do is hit the M key for marquee. What the marquee does is, let me go grab this, is it activates the rectangular selection tool. M is a shortcut for marquee. So you're going to grab the rectangular selection tool, click anywhere outside your box to get rid of your selection, and watch me. I'm going to take my selection tool. I'm going to kind of come back here. There we
Hey,
go.
Don, can I ask you, Stephen, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm following you, but when I do my dots, they're a little longer than I'd like them to be round. You know, in other words, I'm not getting a dot. I'm getting
Okay. A very good comment. All right. So this is what's happening. Let me kind of see what's going on with my cursor. So what's happening is this. When I taught you how to use the Wacom stylus, you've forgotten about some of the fundamentals. One of the fundamentals were to take the blade of your hand and leave it sitting on your tablet.
done.
That is what's controlling all your movement. Then you take your brush and you tap down and release, and that'll give you a single dot. Right? So the blade of your hand is going to hold your hand still, and you tap down and release. So what you're doing is probably holding your hand up, like up in the air like this, and trying to tap down, right?
No, I'm not.
Okay, good. So have your blade of your hand sit on your tab, and then tap down and release your brush.
Okay, I'm working on it.
All right. So if you are not getting your dots, by the way, make sure your tool is selected. Make sure your brush is selected, and black is your foreground color.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to be perfect round dots for this exercise, by the way.
That'll help.
Okay, now watch me for real quick. Don. All right, or Rick, I meant. Let's see. I want to click here. Let's see what's happening now. My this is kind of weird because I just lost my This is strange. I just lost my my tool. Interesting. All right, I'm gonna, let's see, I want this tool selected. I'm gonna click and drag. And now this is important here. The reason you want this rectangle is because when it creates a brush, it's gonna put the crosshairs or the center of the brush dead center of this rectangle. Once I have the dots selected, it's going to take the black dots and it's going to alter that to a brush. And the way we alter it to the brush is go to the edit menu, go to define brush preset. There's my brush. Call it what you want. We'll call this one, I'll call it basic hair. And then click OK. You guys get to that point. Resume. Okay, so now you have your brush here. If you look right over here, yeah, let's see. That's interesting. Let's go on behind it now. That's wild. All right, that should be on top. I'll put it right here. It's showing you the stroke that it's going to make. I'm going to go back and hit Command A for my Etch-a-Sketch and just hit delete. Now if I test my brush, this is what I'm getting. If I resize my brush down smaller, I just lost my overlay for my brush because my video card is having a little problem with Photoshop right now. I'll have to reboot Photoshop to get it back. So this is what I'm doing. See, this is what I'm getting. So resize your brush, and you should have that option for your top button on your Wacom stylus. We set that together already. So if you have not gone in to remove it, you can resize your brush by holding down your top button. And remember, your stylus is going to hover above your pad with the blade of your hand touching your pad the whole time. And then you can come in here and you can create this type of an effect. All right. So play with that real quick. I'm going to hit delete key on the keyboard. Play with that, and then let me pause recording, temp recording. Cool. All right. Here we're back. Now here's my brush. I'm going to resize it. Now keep in mind that custom brushes that you make do not get the red overlay. That's just the way Photoshop works. There's no way to make it happen. The only way to get the red overlay like we used to have is if you have the soft edge brown brushes selected. Adobe has not yet given us the ability to see the overlay of our custom brushes. All right, so I want this brush smaller. Now let's take a look at our settings here. We're going to make a brush. If I go to your brush tip shape, the very top one in your brush panel, so you want this brush panel open right now. Whenever you're creating a new brush, this brush panel is critical. You want that open all the time. Let me bring my layers panel back over. There she is. There it is. I want this down here at the bottom. Kind of reorganizing things as I'm talking here. Okay. Let's go back to here. Command A. Oops, I forgot to do something here. Go undo this here. And I'm going to make a brand new layer. And in that new layer, Command A. There we go. So I just started a new file. Now, as I test this, in your brush tip shape, that's going to allow you to control your spacing. So right down here in the right hand corner on the bottom, you have a slider for spacing. And if I adjust that spacing,
Oh, man.
so you guys do it now. Adjust your spacing to any length that you want and see what it does. See, intermediate Photoshop with the Wacom tablet.
Whew.
All right.
For hair, we would want a low spacing.
Very
Probably.
good, Don. Now, we want hair, right? So if we use this large spacing, matter of fact, that's sizing. I want to adjust this sizing here. If I if I wanted freckles, I could probably use this, right? With that spacing. We're going to put some freckles on her. By the way, we'll use the same brush. We'll modify the brush to be a freckle brush, but we'll also use the same brush to be a hairbrush. And we're going to photographically improve her hair so it looks absolutely accurate. Okay. All right. So now, I don't want freckles. Let me go ahead and delete key and get rid of that. I want hair. So I'm going to take my spacing and bring it close together until we get beautiful strands of hair.
Whoa.
Do that now on yours. So if I stroke, I'm getting hair strokes. I'm going to hit delete. I'm getting hair strokes. Right? Okay. All right. So I'm really just simplifying these steps. So once that's done, once you have your hair, remember hair tapers off at the end, right? In fact, what I like to do, well, we'll keep it a white background. I like to put a medium gray background as an accurate way of testing my brushes. So what I do is this. I simply come over here, go to my adjustment layers, and select solid color. I tell it to make it gets me my color panel by default, and I'm going to select medium gray, dead center, and click OK. And I want you guys to do that next. So go to your adjustment panel right down near the bottom, select solid color, and give it a medium gray. Doesn't have to be exactly like mine, but just somewhere all the way to the left-hand side, midway of the panel. This is going to be your canvas, your canvas color. Okay, Rufus, how you doing? Your mic is muted, by the way.
Doing good.
Okay, great. All right, here we go. Now, after that, I'm going to make a brand new layer on top so that now I know my background color is going to show through. So now if I paint, the reason we chose that medium gray is because it gives us a neutral matte color to compare all of our techniques. Is that making sense? It gives you an accurate rendition as to what we're going to be creating, tonally and color-wise. All right, so select all, make sure everything's selected. So if I hit delete, it gets rid of the hair. Now, I want hair that's going to have a tapered end to it. Don, you don't have a Wacom pen, so you won't be able to do this. But everybody else who has a Wacom pen, this is what you need to do. You're going to come over to transfer on the left-hand side of your brush settings here. Transfer, you don't want to click the box champ transfer. You just want to click on the word transfer. By clicking on the word transfer, it gives you the options right over here on the left-hand side. And if you notice, opacity and flow, it's the same thing as opacity and flow up here in your options bar. The difference is we're going to tell it to utilize pen pressure to control that. So for opacity, I'm going to hit the drop menu for the control and select pen pressure. And for flow, I'm going to hit the drop menu for the control and select pen pressure to get this effect. Do that now.
That's a lot of info, man.
It's Photoshop, dude. What you expect? This is Photoshop. All right.
What's the name of it again?
So many ways to screw up.
You know what? There's so many ways to experiment and create great shit.
That's for sure.
Right?
That too.
It gives you complete control of the creative process. Okay, now we've just we've just created tapered hair. So now when I take my brush, again, with my blade in my hand, sitting on my tablet, watch what I'm going to do. Now, watch my hand. Here, I'll let you guys view my whole screen here. Blah, 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 blah. That one there. Okay. Watch my hand. Let me see, where's my tablet? There we go. All right, here's my tablet. So my hand is sitting on my tablet always like this. Always. Force yourself. Now notice the tip of my finger, tip of my hand, how the tip of the pen is hovering above the tab, above the pad, I meant to say. Now what you're going to do is you're going to touch the pad down a little hard, and then you're going to lift up as you stroke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a circular strokes like this to create hair. Like circular strokes just with my wrist. Just like this, like half circles. And I'm going to do some fast and some slow. So if I come over to here, there's my brush. I'm going to set my brush a little smaller like so. Now I'm going to gently, see?
We don't see. We see you. We don't see the. Screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. My fault. I forgot to share my screen. Duh. Blah, 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 blah. There we go. There we go. There we go. Let's go ahead and pull this through. There we go.
That's pretty amazing.
All right. So tap down and release. Tap down and release, and you've got like this hair effect. Get the tapered hair effect. And just start gently, and then press down hard and release soft. Press down hard and release soft. And it's just practice. I've had a lot of practice.
Oh,
All right.
like shading from gray to.
That's right. We're creating a shading. In fact, let's practice something else. Let's go to your foreground color, and let's get a brown. And I'm going to click on the foreground color with my stylus. Brown is going to be something like an orange, something like in here. Let me go with a darker brown like that. Let's say this person's going to have like a brown hair. Something just like this. So get something in there with your foreground color. Doesn't have to be exactly like mine. My RGB colors is 148, 106, 57, but it doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Just get a brown color that works well. Now, the reason I ask you to get a brown color is for this reason. Now, this is going to be now. I want everybody to watch me on this one, okay? Just watch me on this one. I'm going to start to lay down some color on top of all this. Right? I'm just going to lay down some color. Now, we're going to say this is the girl's bangs, her bangs of her hair or something like that. I'm going to pull this on down. So that's going to be like her bangs of her hair, right? Now, watch. I've got a little bit of black in there. I've got a little bit of brown in there. Now, let's say I want to see some depth in the hair, right? Like closer in between the valleys in the hair. It's going to be a little darker, right? I'm going to hold down the Alt key to grab this darker color, right? So now I'm using the color that I've laid down as a paint palette, like a palette in a painter's hand. So holding Alt or Option gives me the eyedropper. Everybody should know this already. So Alt or Option gives you the eyedropper. I'm going to select that color, right? If you notice, it's a little bit of a deeper brown color. Now, if we want things to be richer, deeper color, what section of the blend modes am I interested in?
The first section.
Excellent. The darkened section. Now, that's right. Well, don't worry. We're getting to the afro part. This is white people's hair. So, we're getting to the afro. All right. So look in your options bar up here. You see where it says normal under mode?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Drop it down and go to multiply. And it's going to, I'm going to use that same brush and I'm going to multiply. It'll make it deeper, richer. Right? Remember, this is like the veins of the hair, right? I'm putting some deep, deep colors in there. Now I want some highlights on top of this, right? Well, let's select a brighter area. Alt or Option key, grab a brighter area. I can even go to my foreground color and say, okay, make it a little brighter color like this, right? But this time, instead of multiply, I go to screen. And I'm going to start creating the reflections on the hair. Right? Like we're creating reflections. Now you can go as far as to making a brand new layer. Say, hey, I want all my lighter colors, my reflections, not reflections, but highlights on this layer. I can double click the layer. I can call it highlights, right? And I can change this blend mode to screen. And I'm going to say I want my highlights to be a little more yellow. So I'll give it a little more of the yellow section here. Make it a little more intense yellow. And in screen blend mode, I'm going to add this in here. So I'm starting to add some depth to the image, right? What was that? Now, if it's really specular highlights, that means the highlights are going to get whiter, right? Brighter. So I can make a brand new layer and call it spec for specular. And I'm going to alt to get my eyedropper, select a brighter color right there. And I want even a brighter color. I want to go much more toward yellow, but much more toward a white yellow. Like so. Something like this. Now, instead of normal and instead of screen, I go to color dodge, which really intensifies it to white. So with color dodge, I say that making sense? So now you guys practice that. Create a.
I'm not going to share my screen today. I can tell you
Yeah.
that.
Oh my.
Remember, we're just practicing. Let's see, normal. Let's color dodge, right? So normal. So I'm just kind of adding. So you can see how we're adding the highlights on here.
Okay, you can do this.
So basically, you can use one layer as your color layer. You can get a little bit of a darker color, lay down like your brown, make a little darker color, change your blend mode to multiply for your brush, and then put down strokes to kind of give you that deeper, deeper shadow areas in your strands.
Wow, my strokes don't have the same motion yours do.
Well.
Just thinking the same thing.
That's right. And they shouldn't. You're not used to it. I've been doing this a long time.
I'm working with a crayon and you working with a point. Give me more crayons, man.
Okay, let me pause while you got. No. The problem is that as photographers, you've been taught to stay inside the lines. I'm trying to get you to get outside the lines so that you can recreate your vision to anywhere you want to go. All right? So how many times have you guys seen presentations by photographers where they try to make these perfect, pristine masks? Right?
That's
Right?
me.
Okay.
All right? So you don't need to think that way. It's good to have those skill sets to know what to do, but you don't need to think that way.
Steve, I have
Yes.
a question for you. on the upper left portion of our screen,
Yep,
after the pen tool and everything, it has mode,
that's
and you can
correct.
pick whatever mode you want. Drop down mode.
That's correct.
And how is that different than the mode on the layers?
All right.
Like when I was drawing,
It's exactly the
I could
same
pick
thing.
modes.
It's exactly the same thing.
Okay.
We use blend modes to apply the layers, right?
Yeah.
I'm teaching you that you can also apply them to your brushes.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it.
That's all. So it further adds extra creative possibilities to
Okay.
add on top of what you already have.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys ready to see a practical application of this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
you're doing it.
Yeah.
Or do you want to play with this a little bit more?
No, we can do it at home.
All right.
Afterwards.
Very good. Okay. All right. So let's go get out of here. I'm gonna Command W. No, I'll keep it because I may need it. I'm gonna hit the F key to bring up the other one here. So I'm gonna select this image and let's play with her. Let's see how we can apply this. And this is gonna require that again, so that you're using your head. You want this hair to look. You want to improve upon the hair, but you want to make it look photographic exactly as we see her hair here, right? Hit the F key to go to full screen mode. Let's zoom in close. I'm going to duplicate the layer, Command or Control J. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to make a brand new layer. Just make a brand new layer, blank layer. Okay. And I'm going to put all of my adjustments in this blank layer. Now, that brush that I have here, now, right now, you can see my brush, right? If you think you forgot to save your brush, right-click while you're in the brush mode on the canvas. It brings up your brush panel. Go to your gear symbol here and say New Brush Preset. There it is, all set up, and click OK. And where did it save the brush? Is always the very last one right there in the bottom. That making sense? So there's my, and it's showing me right here. Here's my stroke for my brush. It's showing me exactly what I'm getting. Now, what I want to do is I want to probably add, kind of refine her hair a little bit here. I've got some strands here. Maybe there's something I can do to kind of make her hair look a little bit smoother across there. But I need it to look like hair. Well, that's when I'm going to go to a command called Clone Stamp Tool. If I click the Clone Stamp Tool, you'll see the last brush that was used with that Clone Stamp Tool from a previous project I was working on. Do I want that brush?
No.
That's right, no. So if I want to go to my brush panel, what's the fastest way of doing it?
Right click.
Excellent. Right click right there. Pops up right there. That's how fast this process is with the stylus. Bottom click, right click, there it is, and there's my brush right there in the bottom. Boom. Where it was last saved. Now click anywhere in your open interface, and that'll go away. Now you have the Clone Stamp tool. I'm thinking most of you probably understand how the Clone Stamp works, but if you don't, here, let me do this. Let me pick another brush for this. Let's pick this brush here, standard circular brush. If I want to clone a portion of this image somewhere else, I'm going to hold the Alt key, click on her eye, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the eyes somewhere else. Now, you can see it's showing up in the brush. Now, the thing you have to remember is up here in your options bar on the far right hand side under the sample. What am I going to sample? I want to sample all layers. By default, it will be under current layer. And the current layer that I have, is there anything in it? No.
No.
So I want to select what I see. What I target is what I get. It's what I'm seeing. So I want to click on all layers. So combine all layers together to get what I want. Now I sampled her eye, right? So now the eye shows up in the brush wherever I want to paint. If I want to paint that a third eye on her forehead, boom. There it is.
I hope there's a pill to make me forget this.
What was that?
I hope there's a pill to make me forget what I'm looking at.
Oh no, we've got a command in Photoshop to help you forget. It's called Control Z.
I know.
Deeper than that, Stephen.
So I can paint a third eye anywhere I want. But take a look. It's in its own layer.
Right.
Before, after, before, after. Right? So I'm gonna Command A, hit delete, like Etch a Sketch, just like before. Now what I want to do is her hair, right? So right click, get the hair, click anywhere to turn it off. Now I want to sample the hair. Bring the brush small to kind of match the strands of hair that I'm seeing here. And I'm going to sample this straight hair here. So Alt, grab that hair, and
Ah, shit.
sample again. Sample again. Keep sampling. I'll sample there.
Woo! Steve, that takes a lot of dexterity that you're doing there, buddy.
No, it doesn't, because I'm zoomed in.
Yeah.
I'm up close. So it's easy. When you're out like this, yeah, it does. You're zoomed, you fill the screen with the area you're working on, right? And I'm going to sample this over here. Make my brush a little smaller. And oops, sorry.
That's the most astounding thing I've seen.
And I haven't shown you anything yet.
I could even give me hair, right?
Yep. You could easily. Don't laugh, you could. See? All right, so now here's where it gets interesting. So there is before, after, before, after. All right, so let's go over. Let's now give this hair some highlights. Now, here's what you could do. Make a brand new layer. So I'm going to call this one just the hair layer, right? It's in normal blend mode, which is what you want it to be. In this layer, I want to intensify, create highlights. So this layer, I'm going to alter to, I think I'll alter to overlay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to target the brightest color here, there. So, and I'm going to hit the B key for the brush, by the way. Now I'm going to go back to the brush, normal brush. Because we're going to use the burning and dodging technique. Normal brush, white is selected. In fact, I may not want that white. I want kind of like a yellowish white to match your hair. So Alt key, grab some of this yellowish, kind of bright yellowish color right there. Okay, foreground color reflects it. Now I'll come back over here, make the brush the size of the hair that I need it to be. All right, I'm gonna burn in some highlights here. See that? And it doesn't look fake. Because I'm using the original pixel information to brighten this up. I want to add some more brightness in here. Or particularly up here where the light is falling and hitting. So before and after, before and after. Is that making sense?
Steve, in real world for me, those little strands to the right of her head, closer to the layers that you went over,
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but I've done it 100 times where I've had to use the clone tool to
Yeah.
to mimic the background to take those out. Um, when I see what you've got here, this is pretty amazing. But I would still have to take those extra strands, those 8 highlights that are pointing north. I still have to take those out, right?
Well, absolutely, you need to take those out.
How would you use the clone, or would you use the brush?
You place her on her own layer. And that's what I wanted to show you next. I thought I showed you this before. In the beginning class, I thought I showed you to the hair extraction tool.
Steve, you can show us many things often, please. You can duplicate whatever you show us. It's always new to us.
Let's see. Let me finish what I'm doing first. If I want to increase the shadow details in here, then on that same layer, which is overlay, if I paint with anything darker, things are going to get darker. I'm going to increase contrast. So Alt, grab the darker areas of the hair like so, and now I can come in here and intensify where I want to intensify. All right, if I want to intensify these darker regions here, oops, sorry.
That looked like my screen.
Yeah, go back to my original brush, which is this one there. There we go. And bring it down, bring the size down to match my brush. And I believe we are on the overlay layer, which means anything is going to be dark. But again, we're using that brush, and it's using the existing details and pixels to create this contour, this depth, right? So before, after, right? Now, if I want to add, so again, hair details, this is the normal hair, which is using my clone brush. And what you would normally do, and I'm going to show you that next, is extract her onto her own layer and then add the hair details on top of that. Then that way you can put in any background you want while she's sitting on her own layer. Even in here, you look at these, there's just some highlights coming across here, but the whole image looks flat. So once again, on that, I'll call this layer Burn and Dodge. Burn and Dodge. And all right, so if I come right over here to these areas, you'll notice that my darker brown is in the foreground and my lighter brown is in the background. So if I hit the X key to go to the lighter brown, then I can increase the highlights in the hair. All right, because in addition to putting the hair down, we have to pay attention to the lighting, and how could we improve the lighting, right? Now I'm going to hit the X key to go to darker areas, and in between her hair here, I've got some shadow regions, which is going to help the highlights to stand out. Because you got to have shadows to see the highlights. All right, so now if we go before and after, before and after, before and after. All right, now now this is all recorded. So basically for homework, Find a portrait, and I want to do the black hair thing too. In fact, I want to finish the brushes before I do the extraction because you do have. I think I recorded this in previous visuals, but I'll do it again. But I want to finish it here. I want to do black hair. All right. I want to do an afro. I don't think I have a. I don't have a black model in here. Somebody with black hair. No, no, it's not good enough. I need to get an afro. I can go online and find an afro, but anyway, I don't need it for this exercise. Let's make a go back to our layer. That go back to this little guy we're playing with here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go and take all these layers I was using to play in, and just delete them. And make a new one, and we're going to do a hairbrush for black hair. So again, you're using your kind of using your head. What does black hair look like? What is it? It's curly and kind of knotty, and and depending on the person's hair. So I'm going to make a simple brush for it. So we're going to go back to that single brush. We created this straight hair using a single brush, right? Single dot brush. We're going to do the same thing with the same brush. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go back up to my general brushes, and I'm going to grab this standard hard edge brush. And I think what I'm going to do is I could just start doing this, but I'm not going to, because I want it to look as realistic as possible, because even black hair, the ends are going to taper, right? So hit the D key for default, which makes my foreground color black. I'm going to come right over here, right click, and instead of the hard round, I'm going to go to the hard round pressure size. That basically means that if I press hard, I get thick, and release, it gets small. Right? So it's changing the size of my brush based on my pressure. Is that making sense? So if I take my brush and make it big like this, now you notice a little plus symbol in the center of my brush there. If you don't have it on yours, I'll just show you a quick way of doing it. Command K. And come over here and grab the. Brings up the preferences panel. Target cursor, and then just make sure show crosshairs on brush tip is selected and your preferences. So show crosshairs in brush tip is selected. Okay, so on the left hand side, cursor, show crosshair and brush tip. And this is also where you can change the color of your overlay. Top right hand corner, by the way.
I'm gonna definitely practice that one.
Oh yeah. So once you set this crosshairs for your brush tip, it'll never go away until you physically go and say no more.
Okay.
And then I'm going to click OK. Now, all I'm going to do now look, I've got the crosshairs on my brush, and you guys should see yours as well. So all I'm going to do now is, just so that you can see this here, if I press light, I get a small, harder, and it gets smoothed up and lighter again. All right. So this particular brush that you chose, if you look right over here under Shape Dynamics, I click on the word Shape Dynamics for the size jitter, and you don't want the jitter here because it's going to alter the shape of the size over the length of the stroke, and that's what jitter means. What I want you to do is have the jitter all the way down to the left, and just simply have pin pressure for the size. So we're going to tell Photoshop just to alter the size of the brush. So no matter what size your brush is, right, it'll always start from the center crosshairs and go out as you press harder. And this requires practice, Don, and also Rick. Be patient with yourself. This requires practice.
I might not live that long.
Don't worry, you live long. Okay, so now watch me. We're gonna make black hair. Make it small. And I'm gonna something like that. I'll do another one. Like that. Like that. Like that. Okay? Now, I need to turn this into a brush, right? And Photoshop targets color of tone to make a brush. So just watch me. You got to make damn sure you turn off that medium gray background so it's only black and white. Does that make that clear? Everybody? If let me show you what happens if you don't do it. Let me show you what happens if you don't do it. If you don't do it, Command M for my marquee. Or just M key for the marquee. If I have this on now and select this,
Oh yeah.
and go to Edit menu, Define Brush Preset, see that dark area all around there? That becomes a brush. So if I turn this off and paint, let's say Command A, see, that's what I'm getting now.
Yeah.
Is that making sense? That's my brush now.
Yeah.
That's not what I want. Let me undo this. Okay. This is what I want. So turn off the medium gray. Leave medium gray on when you test the brush out. Turn it off when you're making the brush. So you have white in the background only. So with that there, Edit menu, Define Brush Preset. There's my brush. Clean. Click OK. There's my brush. Clean. Right? So Command A, hit delete. Okay, now watch me. Don't play. Just watch me right now. I'm going to resize my brush down a little smaller, and I'm going to make black hair. If I test the brush out now, right, this is what I'm getting. It's kind of cool, though.
Slinky.
Right, but that's not what I want. I want black hair. So, black hair, every clump of hair is different sizing, different shapes, right? So, go to the Shape Dynamics. I'm going to click on that first. And I'm going to say over the length of the stroke. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to go to the brush tip shape and give it some spacing like that. So I can see this effect a little better. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go over here to Shape Dynamics. And I'm going to say I want the shape of each hair to be different size over the length of the stroke. So if I pull this to the right, it's using percentages to change the size of each stroke. So when I test it now, okay, each stroke is a different size. All right. Now, we got scattering because black hair is going to be a lot of scattering, a lot of different clumps. So click on the word scattering, and I'm going to increase the scatter, but I'm also going to increase the count. So take the count and add more, like that. So if I test it out, but the problem is that my stroke, although I'm altering the size and all that, it still has one direction it's going in. So what I need to do is go to Shape Dynamics once again, and right down here in the middle you have what's called Angle Jitter. That's going to rotate each one to different angles. Now, so far it's all kind of spread out, and I don't want it that far spread out. So what I need to do is now that I'm going to turn back on my black, my medium gray background. I don't want it that spread out. So what I need to do is go back to brush tip shape and just pull it together, just like we did the straight hair. Look, we're starting to get black hair. And I'm going to test the brush out. Okay, not quite there yet. Almost there. So, my scattering, I think, is a bit too far apart. So I'm gonna pull that in a little bit, so I have a little more control. See? Now, black hair is going to be just one continuous color. We're gonna have different shades of gray in there, different highlights in there. So we need to tell it to utilize a couple different colors to reflect that effect. So I've got black for the background and white for the background just for this example. And I'm going to go to color dynamics right there. Click on the word color dynamics and then apply per tip. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to control how much that white. If I go down to here and paint, you can barely see it. If I bring it up a little higher, oh, see that? All right. So we can control this based on how much of the highlights we want in there. So next is the more convincing thing is applying transfer opacity controls using your stylus. Click on the word transfer and there it is. So I can press light, harder, light, harder. And it's too much white that's being blended in there. So I'm gonna go to the color dynamics and pull out the transition a little bit right about there. I might add some brightness jitter in there too. Well, I'm gonna bring this back a little bit. Huh? I'm gonna bring the brightness jitter down. See what happens. Okay. All right, so let's see with that there. I can switch to two. I can switch to foreground, so the foreground now be white, and then switch to the background again, so I can blend it. And I can change the blend mode of my brush. Say I'll go to overlay, hit the X key to go to white. And overlay again, and I can start playing with this. Okay, so I'm going to show you one last thing. And what I like you to do is work on a portrait. Find a portrait that you can create brushes for to improve upon the hair and their face. I want to show you how to do Freckles real fast. Go back to her. Freckles, you should already know how to do. You probably already figured it out already. So, if I...
Give us a lot of credit, see.
Well, I made a hairbrush, right? I got to save that, right? I can right-click here, go to my gear, new brush preset, click OK. There it is. Now it's my new brush right down there. All right. So now, if we go back to our straight hair brush, that one right there, freckle brush is simply going to the brush tip shape, pulling apart like this, add a little scattering to it, scatter a little bit like this. I think I'll bring back my spacing like this, and then I've got my transfer turned on, of course. And if I make a brand new layer, I think I might want to turn this layer to make it an overlay blend mode to get it to blend with the skin better. And if I pull this out, I'm going to look for a dark blemish in her face. I think I've got something on her nose here. So Alt key, let me grab that right there. That's good enough. And then I'm going to bring the brush down in size and let's see how this works. I got 100% turned on. Let me see if this works. Let's see. Oh, I see. what's going on. I need it darker actually. So I'm probably gonna want to go bring it down a little richer like so. Let's see what that does. Let's see. It's doing it, but it's not dark enough for me. So maybe let me try this. Let me try multiply. I'm gonna hit Command A to get rid of what I had there.
Does it matter that your brush is in overlay? Oh, I see the difference. Okay, never mind. Never mind.
Oh,
Sorry.
you know what? Maybe. Let me see. Let me try this again. Overlay. No. Okay, so if we add a few little freckles, I'm gonna bring this little down here. And then what you're gonna do is, because sometimes you can get freckles in the nose sometimes. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna blur those freckles. So filter menu, blur Gaussian blur. There. Too much blur actually. Oh, what happened to my? Oh, there it is over there. The panel went over to the. And with freckles, you don't want dots necessarily. You might want irregular dots. So you might want to consider just as a thought here. I'm gonna make a new custom panel. You might want to consider creating a brush. And we'll go back to the this one up here. You might want to create a brush that looks something more like this. Let's see if I can make it a little softer. Because freckles are like irregular shapes. So that's going to be maybe something like that. Make some shapes. And in fact, you're gonna want this black, by the way. Make some irregular shapes, and then make a brush from that, and then blur that. Because if you look at people's faces, they're never completely circular round. Right? Okay, so okay. I talked about extracting. We're out of time. But the extraction will actually fit until next week's class, which is going to be on frequency separation technique for enhancing, retouching, and portraiture and so forth. And that's going to fit perfectly into what I want to show you with extracting her from the background. So let's hang tight on that one, and I'll show you that one next week. Extraction tool. So, did I lose anybody today?
Wow. Well, you covered a lot of ground. I mean,
Yeah.
what you're showing me for my work it's critical and important. But going and getting all of that knowledge, holy crap, Stephen, that was a lot of maneuvering.
So just watch the videos, and if you have problems, submit it anyway. So I should see homework from everybody.
I put my homework on today while you were talking.
Okay, well we'll view it next week.
Don't have to, but just so you know, I did.
Okay. All right.
So,
Yes.
I want to ask you a question. Do you find, obviously, what we're learning is using the pen tool, but I see a lot of maneuvers with the trackpad. You could do it, but not as efficiently. Am I?
No, the trackpad doesn't have pressure sensitivity.
Mm.
Doesn't have the Wacom technology.
Yeah.
Did we leave? We lost Rufus again.
But also with a pen, you have more control, don't you, than on a mouse or a trackpad?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not just pressure, but just actually the drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you can use it, it's perfect.
Yeah.
You can use it.
Yeah.
You got to stop using your mouse.
I take my trackpad, I put it off my desk, Stephen. I want you to know, I don't even get it close by, and I feel like I'm stuttering. You know, my hand just doesn't want to move where I want it to go to.
I've got just take your time and practice,
Yeah.
and use it for the internet. Use it for Word. Use it for everything.
Yeah. Okay, I'm working on it.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Stephen.
All right. Very good.
As
Okay.
always, thank you very much.
All right. You're most welcome. I'll stop the recording.